Wednesday, hump day, midweek, 6:20 a.m. About to go get some coffee, do a little charging, and got some positive things going on today. In about, I'd say, 2 hours, I'll be getting a little bonus. I might even get a little paycheck after that. And so money's slightly depleted, and then suddenly I'll be making a couple extra $1,000 this week that was not going to say not expected, but it all is kind of coming at once. And of course I'm looking things up, trying to stay in the know. And that's the whole point to this, is like, I'm looking at this Joe Shabok interview, and I think he called it like, it's not quantum animism, but it's something part and parcel to that descriptor, where it's like, it's like an AI animism, I think it's what, and I haven't watched it yet, but it's like, I posted it up on community posts, and it's getting to the point of ridiculousness, don't you think?
Thanks for coming to Darvish. When you start our pay today.
Hey, good morning. I'd like to order a triple shot espresso hot.
A single shot of espresso hot, you said?
A triple shot?
Triple shot, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything in that?
Yeah, can I get a little bit of steamed heavy cream, please?
Okay.
And
anything else for you?
yeah, maybe just like a grande ice water, not to be a pain, but
And a grande ice water? No problem.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
$3.45 for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know these people are working hard and dealing with a lot of attitude, and nobody gets paid enough for that. Indeed, no one does.
How you doing today, man?
Hey, man, how are you? Thank you. Wow, that's fast. Awesome.
You need a card or anything?
No, I think I got one of those things, yeah. Thanks, man. The one thing about Sacramento, they don't mess around. When it's time to get something, you get it. These people are working, people are making money. They're not effing around, so to speak. But in reference to what I was talking about, it's I'm cruising this car, and driving the semi-autopilot beta version about 70% of the time, especially on the highway. And I don't know if you could say there's a little loss of touch with reality, but I think you're more in touch with reality, because you see the shaky aspect of AI interfacing with quote-unquote real life.
There you go, boss. You have a good one.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good day, man. And that it's only compartmentally used. Like, in other words, I think a really good descriptor of what I just stated that's going to make sense out of it, I'm a little tired, but bear with me, is the fact that we're facing, so the whole push, aggressive push with EVs in California, what did that result in, really? It hasn't resulted in what people had feared and anticipated, and I guarantee in 5 years, when that time lapse occurs, like around 2030, and they've been talking about that for years. I remember that making zero sense in the 1980s. where there was these blanket statements of emissions need to go down to near zero by 2030, 2035. This was written in the 1980s. I remember reading these because for high school I had to do, like, I had to read so I did like a home study where I got straight A's, and I had to do reports, writing on. My teacher would have me pick up a stack of just about every newspaper you could get your hands on, and then he'd have me get my own newspapers too. He'd have me venture out and we're talking about, you know, New York Times and a stack of newspapers. Sometimes I'd have to come back and get the stack because I couldn't carry it with me. And I'd have to go through every newspaper and read all the articles and pick out articles, and then he would read the articles and he would. So, I mean, in essence, I don't know what was happening, but I was kind of like being turned into an amateur journalist. Might be a stretch. And I would get really good grades for it because I'd actually read them, and so I was inadvertently kind of forced into the know with current times at that time, like what was going on around me, and that was one of the things, you know. I remember at the time they were referring to it as the bullet train. Never happened. It was like top priority in the news. These heavily reduced emissions that nobody knew how in the hell that was going to happen at that time, you know. But the same things were discussed, you know. And as I look around, I think, what if I had come here, you know, what if time travel was real in a very generic sense? What if I had just come here for an afternoon to this time, and I came from like 30 years prior? You know, wouldn't that be disappointing? Wouldn't that be heavily disappointing? To look around and see the same clunky fucking trucks that are shaped kind of weird, not even aesthetically beautiful or pleasing, particularly when based around a certain like weird Flash Gordon Rococo type appearance, right? And it's almost like this is your dystopic future. Like that's what the future ends up being. I think people are sick of blaming all of this on unseen forces. Like for a while it was like, oh, those are the clandestine organizations, you know, and then there's these stereotypes, which I'm sure just with gray hair I fit into, because everybody, instead of people fitting into the narrative of ridiculous iconic stereotypes from movies, it comes from video games. You know, it comes from video games, and it's like it's not even based on any fashion of any sort of reality that's ever happened, except for a suggested model. So you do look at the animism, like that there's consciousness and life. Why not just stretch toward Neoplatonism? Like, why even use animism in a separate term when you're trying to infer the same exact thing, you know? And but what people don't understand is like that's what the totem is about, right? Like the totem is technology. Black magic is technology. The mind consciousness is technology in application. and it's projecting reality back out onto the world. And those who don't have the ability to produce craft, to make a difference with their very minds, yeah, that is true. I can tell you 100% plus that is true. That those who must manipulate do it with writing. They do it with degrees. They do it with technology. They're not capable of affecting and infecting and thereby deflecting the world around them outside just simply with their consciousness, their mentalism. They're not able to do that. The people who are considered academically educated and have the degrees are not the people who can get up and rally up the masses. It's the truth. They are not ever the fascist leaders. They do not go along with the standard or the norm. But how much in control are they really? They seem like they really know themselves, and they know themselves better than anybody, and they can get people inspired, But the truth is that there's something else leading them as well, these fascist leaders, these Mussolinis. Yeah, Trump is right in there. You can leave the station, you can be insulted. Biden is an obvious puppet, but a less obvious puppet is Trump. He's following along with the narrative. So my whole point that I was trying to make earlier was that the whole agenda was to push these highly, I'm gonna say, refined, engineered petroleum engines now that are pumping out. I mean, they could produce a tiny little engine now that pumps out 500 horsepower. So, and that gets 50 plus miles to the gallon. That was the plan all along. It wasn't to destroy the petrodollar. Like, that's something that's inferred. It's like, no, we're not destroying the petrodollar. We're going to cause you to burn more coal to produce the electricity for these stupid things. And instead, people are going to end up having 3 and 4 cars in their driveway that think they have the disposable income, but they're actually spending off their children's future, the antiquity. And so the blending of realities is what's occurring. That's why people think so dynamically in opposition, antithetical to one another, particularly with regards to any future scope, is that they see a completely different future. And invariably their future comes to fruition. It's going to. But it is always going to be at odds, in opposition with another sect of people's future prospects and how they transpose their imagination, their focus. And that's the world they live in. It's kind of like somebody hating the American culture. Oh, gee, surprise, surprise. Coming to this country as a refugee, but coming with family and money and never having to learn the English language. And eventually, money follows the root. That's the new animism, Joe Shabok. That is the Neoplatonic truth. Is that if consciousness were in everything, and if you could talk to a rock, it would tell you things that probably would freak you out so much about aspects of the universe, dark matter, quarks, that it relates with on a moment-to-moment basis, and that it transcends time, and it's mere observation of you and where you are at in time, and how you are being manipulated, how you are produced to be manipulated. How when you think you are the one manipulating, there is no you, so there is no way you can manipulate. And though this seems off topic or abstract, it is exactly what you will find when you come down to the main center aspect of what Chris Bledsoe and his son talk about, right? Tell me I'm wrong. What Through a Glass Darkly, all of the people that they have on that particular program, that show, which I think is a very wide-ranging center around the topic, the phenomenon at hand, which is, what the fuck is consciousness? Like, that's the type of aggressive behavior and aggressive energy that has to be overlaid over everything, because consciousness itself is not yours, even though you think it is. It's a strange relationship. It's kind of like thinking that you just married this woman and you're 100% in control, and that you own another human being. And it's like, the more she does for you and the more you believe that, the less honest that person is going to be with you. And no, there's not going to be some slave massaging your feet in the future. You're going to have a very spiteful person on their hands who's seen the darkest aspects of you. You know, if you want to talk about multi-decade, multi-generational transition over the last 50 to 80 years, yeah, it's not going to be that. It's not going to be that. There's not going to be, in other words, there is no compliant slave class. There is no compliant AI robotic structure unit that's going to be serving you. Isn't that what the movie AI was all about? Like, isn't that bizarre that Steven Spielberg was so involved with you know, when you look at like the whole Close Encounters thing, you look at Contact, you look at CE5, you look at what he really knew and how he bent the narrative with Close Encounters on purpose. That's something that you can look up if you're not familiar with that. It has to do with Jacques Vallée and his character in that movie, the French scientist. And I think it's a stretch to call anything esoteric. In fact, that was always an irony. And you will see that I've always bent back toward a very stark and dark reality scape, where we don't even know what technology is. Like, if you can't place what consciousness is, like, tell me what the difference is between a motherboard and Indian ink writing on your skin and the very skin that it's written on. Like, if you got to this place where you were able to break down bioorganic, highly sophisticated robotic units that would self-replicate, well, that's exactly what we are, you know. And yeah, I believe that we are technology, 100%. And I think that the fact that we think this is real proves the job that was done in the first place.